นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนามัสสามิ Today's Friday, 24th of April, 2015. It's the first day of our weekend retreat. And we've come together on the occasion. We have a new hall down below, which you're all aware of. The opening of our new hall on Sunday. We hope to have Luang Por Opat visiting us from Thailand and installing the Buddha relics, which have been offered by several different teachers. He'll be bringing some as well. Luang Por Blien has offered some, Venerable Ajahn has offered some, and some other monks and lay followers have kindly donated Buddha relics from the body, the ashes of the Buddha, to be installed in the main statue in the new hall. And that statue, the mudra of the Buddha statue, it's the Patoma Desana mudra, meaning the Buddha teaching for the first time, setting forth in motion the wheel of the Dhamma. So you see the hall has a Dhammachakra wheel on the outside, has a large carved Dhammachakra wheel behind the statue of the Buddha, and he symbolized the teachings of the Buddha coming from the enlightened mind of a Buddha. The Buddha explained the Four Noble Truths in his first teaching. As he did that, Venerable Anya Kondanya, one of the first five disciples of the Buddha, they say he opened the Dhamma eye, had a vision of the Dhamma of Nibbana, and attained to Sotapanna, stream enterer. His mind entered the stream of the Dhamma. And from then onwards, the wheel of the Dhamma has continued in motion 2,500 years, right down to the present day. We are lucky, we're born as Buddhists, or we've come to have faith in the Buddhist teachings. So we've come to practice here this weekend to, you might say, to celebrate the new Dhammachakra hall, but celebrate through the practice. Particularly, we call this a meditation retreat. So we're learning how to meditate. Or if we know how to meditate, learning how to deepen our meditation practice. Ajahn Chah, our teacher, sometimes he'd say, people would ask, why do we practice? He'd say, we practice to know ourselves. Or sometimes he would ask people who come to the monastery, do you know yourself yet? Do you really know yourself? As the Buddha pointed out, the reason we have stress and suffering, and even the reason why we're born in this world, is because of ignorance, not knowing, not understanding the truth. From ignorance we get craving, conditions, the arising of craving, desire. From craving attachment is conditioned. Upadana. From upadana we get bhava, becoming. From becoming we get jati, birth. So as human beings we're subject to birth, old age, sickness and death, just as we chanted just now. We remind ourselves. But it all stems from ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. So the Buddha and the enlightened arahants have no more birth, they say. They've attained Nibbana through penetrating the Four Noble Truths. They have no more birth, no more suffering. Because they've completely freed their mind from ignorance as a conditioning force. And they've developed the Eightfold Path, Magga, to the point where there's no more misunderstanding, not knowing, or ignorance in the mind. The mind completely sees the truth of the way things are. And this truth we call the Noble Truths, Arya Satya Dhamma. Four Noble Truths, as the Buddha explained in that first teaching. So we're coming here to meditate, to learn more about the Four Noble Truths, and from that to get to know ourself, the real self, as Ajahn Chah said. This quality of knowing is probably what you would say is the heart of meditation practice. It's developing the ability to know, but to know with the heart, not just to know with the brain or the intellect, not just to remember the Dhamma, but to know and directly experience Dhamma through the practice. This is why we learn to meditate. We're developing this skill of knowing our hearts and minds. In Thai they say jit jai, hearts and minds. Because when we practice meditation, we're developing two things. We're developing samadhi, it's that ability to calm the mind, bring the mind and the emotions to a sense of peace and balance. And then we're developing wisdom, panya, to understand. Once the mind is calm, the heart is calm, then we can contemplate, to develop wisdom, understanding, to see the way things are. So when we meditate, we don't need a lot of things. We just come here, we have this body and this mind. This is where we meditate. And we use meditation techniques. So we might use Buddho. We recite the word Buddho, Buddho, Buddho to bring up mindfulness, sati, to know our own mind in the present moment. Or we follow the breathing. Breathe in, we know the breath as we breathe in. Breathe out, we know the breath as we breathe out. Nothing much. We don't need a lot of equipment. Just come into the hall, sit on a mat, do walking meditation outside. And as we move around the monastery, we have food, we go to sleep, we bathe, we do our chores. The idea is to keep bringing up this quality of knowing, bringing the mind to pay attention to the present moment, to the posture, to the mind, to the body in the present moment. We don't even need a lot of information or knowledge, book knowledge. Although it's sometimes helpful, we listen to the Dhamma, we read This helps us to clarify some different points of what we're doing. But the kind of knowing we're developing through meditation actually goes beyond words. We're knowing with the heart itself, what we call direct seeing or direct experience of the truth. So it's not just thinking about Dhamma, making theories or guessing about the Dhamma. We're actually knowing the truth, knowing the Dhamma through our meditation. So if we take the breathing as our meditation object, what are you knowing? You're just turning your attention, paying attention to the breath, the feeling, the sensation of the breath. You breathe in, you know. You breathe out, you know. If the mind slips away to thinking about other things, you remind yourself, let go of those thoughts. You remind yourself to come back to the feeling of the breath. Every time is what we're aiming for. So we have to be very patient, put effort into this practice to train the mind. It's not easy because of our habits, our past habits and the busyness. As we see, we come into the monastery, our first day, still the mind is full of different thoughts, moods, feelings, thinking about our work, thinking about meeting other people, talking about plans. Takes a little bit of time to settle down. So we need to put in effort into the practice. Where does the effort come from? It comes from saddha, faith. We have some faith in the Buddha, in the enlightenment of the Buddha. Have faith in the Dhamma, the truth. Have faith in Sangha, the enlightened disciples of the Buddha. We see that there's something of value here. This is spiritual value, value internally, in your heart, not necessary external value. Not the same as something that's worth money or worth value in the world. This knowing that we develop through the practice, this is internal value, internal wealth. And the value helps us to be more peaceful. Because when you practice, you'll notice when you have mindfulness, already you start to feel more peaceful, more calm. Because you know yourself. You know this body, you know this mind in the present moment. Even if you do have many thoughts popping up into your head, if you keep establishing mindfulness, you can be at peace. Even when the mind is very restless, you can find some peace in there. As Buddhists, we often talk about making merit. And often we say, making merit, we do acts of charity or generosity. So we come to the monastery and we make offerings. We say we make merit. And it's true, it's merit, it's something good. And it makes us feel happy. Or you go and do some charity, you help some person or group of people that need support, helps them and makes us feel happy. But the Buddha said there's more merit we can make also, not just the practice of generosity. When we keep precepts, we make merit. When we meditate, we make merit. In the hierarchy of merit, the Buddha said the greatest merit is meditation. If you experience a moment of a peaceful mind, There's more powerful merit than even offering dana to the Buddha. If you experience a moment of insight, where you contemplate, see the three characteristics of existence in your own experience, you see anicca, dukkha, anatta, even for a moment, and it helps you to release your mind from its attachment, craving. The Buddha said even more powerful merit than offering dana to the Buddha and a whole sangha of enlightened disciples. So when we come to practice meditation like this, it's important not to forget this. This effort we're making is worthwhile, it's valuable to us as human beings. Because sometimes we doubt. Because we don't yet know, we doubt. And we think, is this worth it? Coming to meditate, maybe have painful knees, painful back. Sometimes it's cold, staying in the monastery in a tent. Sometimes it feels cold, uncomfortable. You might doubt, you say, is it worth it? Or as you meditate, your mind is very restless. Lots of thinking, worrying, irritation, or sleepiness. You think, is it worth it? My practice is no good, I can't meditate. But this effort we're making is what we call noble effort. And the Buddha said, very powerful good karma, very powerful effect on our mind, on our life. We shouldn't forget that as we come to practice. The important thing is to be putting in the effort. You've all made effort leaving your homes, coming to stay in the monastery for a couple of days. That's something very special. We shouldn't overlook that and think, I came to the retreat and my mind is all over the place. That may be true, but we've come to this retreat and we're making effort, and that's the most important thing. And every moment you bring up mindfulness, you're getting to know your own mind, your own body, and seeing the truth more closely. And these moments of mindfulness start to add up. Because the Buddha said it's very powerful conditioning effect, very powerful good karma, good effect on our mind. You bring up mindfulness once, twice, 3 times, little by little it starts to have a good effect. So we don't need to doubt too much. Teach yourself, remind yourself if you're doubting, so give it time, keep putting more effort back into bringing up mindfulness. And little by little you'll find it has its effect. And what do we learn when we practice mindfulness and we develop this knowing? Well, we learn about the truth about ourselves. We learn about the breath. As you're breathing in, you become mindful of the in-breath. You breathe out, you become mindful of the out-breath. And what do you notice? First of all, you notice the breath is anicca, it's impermanent. We say my breath, and normally in our mind we have this idea, this picture, this is me, I'm here. Even when we watch the breath, it's my breath. But as you become more mindful, you're aware of the breath, the sense of my, me, myself starts to fade from your experience. And you're just aware of the sensation of the air coming in. As it comes in, there's a pause, then it goes out again. And our life really comes down to this one very small point. We have our breathing, our breath, but it's impermanent. Comes, it goes. That alone can teach us to let go of our delusions. All the delusions based around this sense of self, me, mine, myself. All our suffering. If you reduce everything down to the in-breath, the out-breath, it might fade away very quickly. If you notice when you have a lot of stress in your mind, you're not usually very aware of the breath at that time, caught up with all the thoughts and the ideas around that stressful situation, stressful feeling. This is dukkha. When we have dukkha and have no mindfulness, then the sense of self is very strong. My dukkha, my suffering, my problem. When we lose our mindfulness, we lose our understanding, then we build things up in the mind. So we attach to our thoughts, our feelings, memories, perceptions, attach to the body. As we practice mindfulness of breathing though, we start to loosen that attachment. We're doing something going in the opposite direction that our mind is normally taking. Normally the unenlightened mind is always grasping and holding on to things. We take ownership of our experience. We try to own things in the world, so we run around earning money, buying property, possessions. We try to own the things of the world, or sometimes just reputation, status, power. Many things we try to own in this world. It all stems back to this mind. The mind tries to own these 5 khandhas, feelings. We say this is my feeling, pain, pleasure, my thoughts, my mood, my memories, and so on. And this sense of Maya comes up all the time. Unless we start to practice mindfulness, then it just carries on by itself. And it gets stronger. You notice when you have a feeling of suffering, the sense of myself, my suffering is very strong. As you start to turn to the breath, and that sense of Maya starts to fade away. So the sense of suffering starts to fade away. You can see every time you attach to something, you start to suffer again. As we practice like this, we're getting to know this body and mind. It's not that you become sleepy or hypnotized or in some kind of special trance, but you're just seeing the nature of this body and mind, the nature of the 5 khandhas, the way they are. You see there's something that you ultimately can't hold on to and make yours or own, because they arise and pass away. The body is constantly changing. It's getting older, changes. We have different experiences with the body, heat and cold, pleasure and pain. Our thoughts are coming and going, feelings, memories coming and going. This is what we're looking at as we practice meditation. We're noticing the impermanence of these things. What's impermanent we can't control or make ours. It doesn't last, nothing lasts. So we're teaching the mind this as we meditate on the in-breath and the out-breath. We're letting go of the habit of grasping, taking ownership of experience. So we practice letting go. And this letting go, it's not just giving up completely on everything. Otherwise you wouldn't even meditate. You're letting go within the meditation. So you're putting effort in to bring up mindfulness. Then you're contemplating your experience. And then you let go of the grasping nature of the mind. So you're still doing something. You're bringing effort up to bring up mindfulness, and then looking at the way things are. But then you're letting go within that experience. You're letting go within action, the action of this meditation. Sometimes people hear this teaching and they think, oh, letting go means doing nothing, not caring. Doesn't mean that. It means letting go of the grasping mind from within your experience. So somebody who's letting go, maybe they're working very hard, practicing very hard, doing a lot. Doesn't mean to say they don't do anything. But in their mind, they're letting go of the grasping, which causes a suffering. The result is the mind feels very light, peaceful. If you're following the breath and you see different thoughts, stressful thoughts coming up, but then you see the stress, you have enough insight to let go, well, your mind feels very light, very happy, because it's let go. The Buddha said these khandhas are very heavy on the heart. Para, Hawi, Panchakanda, the 5 khandhas are heavy. Because the heart grasps at them, takes ownership of them. Every little thing, every little part of the body, every little part of the mind. When we're not clear, we don't have mindfulness and insight, we take them as self. So this sense of self is very heavy. Every thought, every feeling we grasp at. The pleasurable feelings, we say, I like this, I want more of this. The unpleasant, painful feelings and experience, we say, I don't like this, don't want this. But this liking and disliking, it's heavy, puts like a heavy weight onto the mind. We're always running around after this craving and attachment. It's not peaceful, it's not at ease. We keep deluding ourselves, making a mistake. We say, this is me, this is mine, myself. But as we carry on practicing, that sense of self might start to fade a little bit. And we feel more peaceful, more content. We know things, but we don't grasp. So we can allow thoughts to come and go, even feeling to come and go. You're meditating, you keep putting effort into your meditation. Maybe at first you have painful feeling in your knees, your back, or you feel tired. But then you keep meditating, keep putting effort into bringing mindfulness, and you watch. And the painful feeling maybe comes and goes, eventually it might just disappear altogether. And then you know, feeling is impermanent, not self. The mind that knows is not the same as the feeling. Feeling is one thing, mind is another. This is how we practice. We have to be very patient, keep putting effort into bringing up mindfulness, and then watching and learning from our experience. As we practice letting go, the mind feels lighter, brighter, happier. Doesn't have to attach, doesn't have to get so worried or anxious about things. Doesn't have to get angry about things. Doesn't have to seek after with greed for different things. It becomes, we say, fuller in itself as you bring up more mindfulness. The simile is like the jar of water. You keep dropping in water to the jar, gradually it becomes full. you keep practicing mindfulness, gradually the mind becomes more and more aware, and it lets go more and more naturally, so it becomes full, peaceful, happy. If the mind is full, then it doesn't want anything. It doesn't need anything to be happy. It's happy in itself. Walk around, whether you're sitting, standing, walking, lying down. If it feels full, then it's full. It's not hungry. It's not wanting anything. It's not mentally hungry, seeking more mental food. Even physical hunger disappears. You feel happy in yourself even if you haven't eaten something. Sometimes as we practice, the way we let go, it's you let go of the hard things, the coarse things first, the obvious suffering, and you move towards the more subtle things, more deep as you go in more deeper into the practice. So when we come into the monastery, first of all we're just learning to live more peacefully in a more disciplined way. So we keep the precepts. So we have to let go of some of our habits, maybe the habit to, if you're keeping the 8 precepts, maybe you're used to seeking entertainment. So you have to set that aside, be more disciplined, more simple. We let go of our tendency to talk a lot or argue, to be rude to others, harmful to others. We let go of our tendency to harm other creatures, even little bugs, insects. These are the kind of coarse things we let go of first. But as you get used to the precepts, then your mind feels more relaxed, more calm. Then you can see the more subtle kinds of attachment that we have to let go of. Same with material things. Like when you come into the monastery, you have to let go of some of your comfort. Most of us have a much higher comfort level than living in a monastery. We have nice houses, cars. We're used to eating when we want, sleeping when we want. We have nice furniture. We have technology, entertainments, and so on. You come into the monastery, it's very simple. Stay in a tent. 1 main meal a day, not much distraction. So you have to let go of that kind of coarse attachment to comfort. But as you appreciate the practice you're doing and you're simplifying your life, your mind can experience some higher kinds of happiness. The happiness of renunciation, giving up some of its basic normal attachment. You might find it's quite a relief. You don't have to worry about your house for a few days. Don't have to worry about a lot of things you normally are concerned with. So it's a relief. The mind is quite happy. You can relax. Often some of the suffering that affects us in our daily life, when we come into the monastery, we realize it's really not that much of a problem. You know, how much we suffer over very little things in our life. We suffer over our relationships and our work, and just, even very small little things like, what shall I have for dinner tonight? This or that. How should I arrange my home? Where shall I go for my holiday? This or that. Some of the different opinions and views we have. Sometimes we argue with ourselves. Sometimes we argue with others. We're caught into doubt, not knowing. You come into the monastery, all of that doesn't matter anymore. Now it's time just to meditate. You can set aside those concerns. Your mind grows in the Dhamma. You become a little wiser. You get to be better at letting things go, more mature. Things that used to bother you don't bother you so much as you practice this. You become more patient, more willing to let go, because you get better at it. And if you look around at the rest of the world, you realize, oh, actually, a lot of other people in the world are suffering much more than us. And maybe you come on retreat and you say, oh, it's a bit cold, or the floor is a bit hard, or this is not right and that's not right. But these are very kind of small kinds of suffering that the mind can throw up. You look around the rest of the world, a lot of suffering, isn't there? A lot of conflict, a lot of illness, a lot of problems that human beings have, poverty, and so on. We're doing quite well. Our only problem really is our mind. It creates all this extra suffering, doesn't it? I like this, don't like that. And we add this on to our experience. It's like that time, famous story, there was a couple came to see Ajahn, and the wife, husband and the wife is crying and crying and crying. Sits down and Ajahn says, what's the problem? And he said, oh, my diamond ring was stolen. My favourite diamond ring. Ajahn just said, diamond? It's just stone, rock. Didn't really console the woman yet. She was crying, but it's my lovely diamond ring. So important to me, crying. As Ajahn was talking to the lady and the man, then another man came in. He sat down, he was crying. So Ajahn said, well, what's up with you? He said, oh, yesterday my wife went into the forest to collect mushrooms, and she got the wrong mushrooms, came home, made a curry with the mushrooms, and she and my 3 kids ate it and they've all died. In one go, all his family is gone. The first couple, oh, so we only lost a diamond ring. Not that bad after all. All the crying stops, and they're so relieved. We only lost a diamond ring. This man's lost his whole family. Sometimes it's like that. When you wake up to the truth, then you realize a lot of your suffering is very minor. It's just self-created. We attach so much and we grasp at things so much. We create all this extra unnecessary suffering in our mind. This is what we're looking at when we meditate. We're learning how to bring up more awareness of our own mind and see where we're creating suffering. Always worrying, always forming opinions and judgments. I like this, don't like that. This is good, that's bad. Endlessly making up stories in our mind, and we apply it to ourselves. I'm good, I'm bad, I'm right, I'm wrong. They're good, they're bad, they're right, they're wrong. This is what we're looking at. When you come to focus on the breath, then you realize it's just breathing in, breathing out, and everybody is the same. Nobody's different. We all just breathe in, breathe out. And the nature of this world you can learn from this one thing. And the world is impermanent, and we don't own it. It's like when we get angry with someone. You get angry with someone, maybe they did something, maybe they didn't, but you get angry with them. If you get so angry you actually wish to harm them. You stop and you think about it. You don't need to harm anybody in this world because we're all getting older and we're all going to die anyway. Why do human beings fight? There's no need. But people get so lost in their moods and their attachments they don't see. So they fight, they argue, they fight, they even kill each other sometimes. When you do the breathing meditation, you realize, everybody is in the same boat. Breathe in, breathe out, everyone is the same. When the breath stops, it doesn't come in again. That's it, end of your life. The body stops. If we can see that, then the mind starts to become peaceful, can accept the way things are. And the world is impermanent. This body and mind impermanent. All the things I love and like, one day they must separate from me. So you can accept that peacefully, because the mind knows, the heart knows. First of all, we know with our memory, we do the chanting, we hear the talk. Later the mind knows itself inside. It's beyond words, we don't even need the words anymore. It just knows everything is impermanent, not to be grasped at as self. So little by little we become more aware of our heart, our inner heart, spiritual heart. As we become more aware of it, we learn how to calm it down, and reflect on the truth and keep it peaceful. Then we have something of real value, real beauty, real value. Nobody else can take it away, nobody else can harm that. So on Sunday we'll be installing the relics of the Buddha in our statue. And that's something to think about, isn't it? Where do relics come from? And the Buddha said, as Buddhists, one of the few material things we can worship are relics of the Buddha or an enlightened teacher. They are a sign, a symbol of the enlightened mind, the purified mind. The mind that no longer is deluded, no longer attaches to the world, no longer attaches to the self, seen through that. Those relics are reminding us constantly that human beings can do this. We can understand this, our own hearts better, and bring them to peace through understanding. When an arahant dies and they cremate the body, then you get relics. The bones and the parts of the body, the hair, the blood, everything can crystallize. Because the mind has already crystallized first. The pure mind, free from greed, hatred, delusion. So for the next couple of days we can dedicate ourselves to practicing out of respect for the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, and as a way of celebrating our new Dhammacakka hall. So maybe I'll give you just this much teaching tonight. We can pay respects to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, and then there's just a few announcements before we go back to our resting places.